I think there were probably three branches of influence in my life that brought me to this. I think the first is based in my family. I come from a family that was active in the civil rights movement. Some of my relatives were part of the American Labor Party for a very long time. And the politics and discussions in my house about getting people together and helping them fight for particular rights or benefits in their communities and stuff like that, it was always a part of the narrative of stories that were told in my household. So on my father's side, Caribbean heritage, and some of their stories about fights for independence and overthrowing colonial rulers, or taking them over, or transitioning smoothly to independence, so however they want to characterize them, were also infectious. And then I think my college days helped a lot too. I was fortunate enough to come into contact with a number of different professors whose politics in many ways resonated with the stories that I had heard growing up. And definitely my mom really giving me a sense of the importance of civic engagement, I think, are the three. Informally, I began organizing in my neighborhood. I was engaged in helping to pull together a neighborhood block association. I was too young at the time to be the president of the block association because some of the elders, I guess, weren't quite ready for that.
Yeah.
But I was the vice president at a fairly young age. I was still a teenager, and not even a teenager that could vote. So I think in those early formations, working on things like cleaning up our neighborhood, getting resources to preserve a historic house. Alexander Hamilton's house is in my neighborhood. I grew up with stories of folks like the federal government officers trying to take the house away. Those are some of the earliest memories that I definitely have of organizing people to secure resources to get what we think is the pathway forward actually achieved. After that, I did a good bit of work with young people in my neighborhood. I, at the time, was quite young, but I didn't let a lot of them know. And organizing basketball tournaments and leagues and double Dutch tournaments and leagues and stuff like that, just to provide a space for young people in the community to be engaged in something that was positive. And we try to marry those two opportunities to expand people's knowledge about history and politics, things that I was passionate about, race, relations. I mean, anything. I would use those as spaces to say, before we can play, we got to talk a little bit about these things. So that was probably the second incarnation. And then raising money for those things was something that I got engaged in pretty early on, because I didn't quite have the means to support all of it out of my own pocket. And then on campus, I went to City University of New York, Hunter College. I was engaged in some of the student politics there and organized some students to change direction of the academic senate of our college. Got some things done there. So those are the earliest sort of incarnations, but the more what I would call professional organizing definitely started with my work with We Act, which has been a long time going on now.
When did you start?
1994.
And you told us what your role was.
I'm the deputy director.
That's what I noticed was different than the first time I saw you.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, some days I'm like, okay. But yeah, it's a great road and a great ride. And my first interactions were as a volunteer. The organization's been around for 20 years. I've probably been connected to it for maybe 17. And the very first interactions were really around the start of the organizing work to stop the sewage treatment plant that was in our neighborhood, holding sort of community accountability sessions, doing teach-ins around the health impacts of sewage treatment plant. It was very interested in environmental issues. But whenever I would connect with quote unquote environmentalists,
Yes.
I often found that the things that they focused on didn't fire me up and kept me focused on looking for something else in the environmental arena that would closely align to whatever I don't even know how to describe it, whatever those things are that make you tick and hum and really feel good inside. And it's when I connected with Peggy and Bernice and Chuck that started to make sense to me. Peggy tells the story of hearing me talk at one of the summer neighborhood rallies that we had organized as part of the neighborhood association that I was one of the leaders on. And I talked about the importance of the environment, but talked about the importance of the environment for those of us who live in Harlem and on Convent Avenue, which is where I'm from. And she says that when she heard that, she was like, that's a young man I need to get to know. So that's how she reached out to me. Yeah, my roots in Harlem are pretty deep. My family, the ones who are from Harlem, lived in the same place in the same neighborhood for almost 9 decades now.
As you look back on your experience as an organizer, both professionally and before, what would you point out as some of the lessons that you've learned about organizing?
There have been a lot. I think that one of the greatest skills of an organizer is the capacity to listen, not just hear people, but listen. And for me, listening is more than just the sensory thing of the ears taking in a sound kind of thing. It's really processing and thinking about what people are saying and taking cues from their body language in addition to their verbal communication. I think that is the foremost, most critical tool of a good organizer. I think people can be trained formally to be organizers, but if you don't have an innate sense of how to actually listen to people, that can be cultivated further, I think you won't get far. So I think that's the first and most important lesson. From that flows the idea of recognizing once you've listened to people, it's your challenge and responsibility. It's both of those things to meet people where they're at and to not necessarily consumed by whatever issue makes you passionate, to think that has to be their first priority. People are very astute in their ability to discern what their priorities should be, and having respect for that is all about what it means to meet people where they are. I think the third thing is always recognizing that an organizer's job is not necessarily to dominate and lead a conversation, but to listen, meet people where they are, and figure out how to get resources to people that can help them accomplish what they determine to be their priorities. If you are someone who cares about communities and cares about people, then obviously you will be able to relationships through that path of being able to listen to people, recognizing that you have to meet them where they are, and being able to bring them resources to help them deal with the challenges that they prioritize. Then you can really work on bringing them to the things that are passionate about, that you're passionate about as well, so long as those things really do have an intersection with their lives. And I think that's been, for me, the most important things. Beyond that, I think the importance of recognizing at times when you do need formal training to do this work, and that there are people who, bless their hearts, have really developed the craft of organizing into a profession, into a body of knowledge and a set of tools that it would be foolish for anyone who wants to call themselves an organizer not to take advantage of. And so recognizing that while your heart may call you to be in a certain place and to do things in a certain way, there's also this gift that people can provide you with, having really looked back analyzed and focused on what's effective and how to be of better service to the people and communities that you care about. So I think those are the most important
Very good.
lessons.